5 World Hot News You Should Know from June 12 to June 17 of 2021. Welcome to VIETUS 1040 channel, the world's hot news. To Newsletter 1. The talks ended earlier than expected. Russian President Putin held a press conference to reveal many important information. Newsletter 2. The global oil and gas industry is about to enter a total transformation. Newsletter 3. 50 million Americans are suffering from an intense heat wave. Newsletter 4. Explosion at a chemical plant in the U.S. state of Illinois. About 1,000 people had to evacuate urgently. Newsletter 5. The U.S. state of California will ban the sale of gasoline-powered passenger cars from 2035. The following are the details of the newsletters. Newsletter 1. The talks ended earlier than expected. Russian President Putin held a press conference to reveal many important information. The general news said that instead of lasting from 4 to 5 hours as previously scheduled, the talks between Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Joe Biden ended after 3 hours. While Mr. Biden was leaving the Villa Lagrange Castle where the talks took place, Vladimir Putin held a private press conference. During the press conference, Vladimir Putin praised Joe Biden as an experienced statesman in contrast to his predecessors. The Russian president said that Russia and the United States will begin consultations on cybersecurity. Both sides have to fulfill certain obligations, Putin said. Putin also added that the U.S. and Russian ambassadors will return to work and will only be a purely technical matter. Russian ambassador to the U.S. Anatoly Antonov and U.S. ambassador to Russia John Sullivan have been in their hometowns for the past few months due to growing tensions between the two countries. When asked about Ukraine's accession to NATO, the Russian president replied emphatically, "I don't think there is anything to discuss." When asked about the opposition activist Navalny, who is serving a sentence in a prison in the Moscow region, Russian President Putin even refused to give Navalny's name, but simply referred to as this man. This man knows that he is violating Russian law. He has been convicted twice, Putin said. Responding to a question from CNN whether the conversation between him and Mr. Joe Biden was hostile in nature, the Russian president said, "I think there was no hostility. Quite the contrary, the talks were in fact quite constructive. Both sides showed a willingness to understand each other." Putin said that his talks with his U.S. counterpart were overall productive. The talks are substantive, concrete and take place in an atmosphere aimed at achieving results, he told reporters. Putin's press conference lasted about an hour. Newsletter 2. The global oil and gas industry is about to enter a total transformation. It is reported that the global oil and gas industry is about to enter a complete change as private corporations in this field face the challenge of cutting production. On June 14, Business Insider reported that Shell is a British and Dutch multinational oil and gas group that is considering selling off some large assets. This includes the sizable oil field in the Permian Basin in the southwest of the United States. Responding to the media, a representative of Shell declined to comment on the above information. Observers say that the reduction of Shell's operations is quite understandable because last month the group was ordered by a court in the Netherlands to cut emissions by 45% by 2030, carbon in total sales compared to 2019, and the reduction should reach 6% in 2023. Shell responded that the ruling was unreasonable, but observers said it was difficult to change the ruling. Meanwhile, the emission rate of petroleum products that Shell provides is difficult to cut. So the above ruling almost means that Shell has to cut production. Not only Shell, other private oil and gas groups are also tending to reduce their operations. ExxonMobil has just decided to withdraw from a joint venture in an oil exploration project in Iraq. The Iraqi side sought out other private oil and gas groups in the world to invite ExxonMobil's replacement in the above project, but failed. Knowing that in reality, private oil and gas groups are not only at risk of receiving similar judgments from Shell, but also under increasing pressure from environmental activists and especially the government. pressure from shareholders to be responsible for the environment, cut emissions. Regarding market demand, although the electric car industry is developing rapidly, the demand for petroleum and gas to operate production or means of transport such as trains, ships, airplanes still needs gasoline. Meanwhile, state-owned oil and gas corporations, NOCs, of other countries are not under as much pressure as private energy corporations. According to Bloomberg, it is likely that a Chinese state-owned oil corporation will take the place of ExxonMobil in the joint venture of the oil and gas exploration project in Iraq mentioned above. NOCs such as Saudi Aramco, Saudi Arabia, or National Petroleum Corporation Abu Dhabi, UAE, are spending billions of dollars to increase production capacity. Similarly, Qatar Petroleum Corporation under the Qatar government is also investing an additional $30 billion to double export output. In the context that the supply may be more limited, gasoline prices are forecast to increase in the future. Newsletter 3. 50 million Americans are suffering from an intense heat wave. According to the latest news, the U.S. National Weather Service said that with a temperature range from above normal to extremely high expected at least through the end of this week, the U.S. press is saying that a record and prolonged heat wave is taking place across the American West. The reality is that the heat is extending from east to west, from Wyoming to California, from north to south, from Idaho to Arizona. Red states like Arizona or Nevada have the potential to break high temperature records. Particularly, the city of Phoenix, Arizona, recorded a heat wave of 46 degrees Celsius on June 14 and is expected to exceed 48 degrees Celsius this weekend. NWS said in Salt Lake City in Wyoming, June 15 was the second consecutive day to set a temperature record of 40.5 degrees Celsius, the hottest temperature ever recorded in June. On June 14, Utah's capital experienced a temperature of 39 degrees Celsius, breaking the temperature record set 50 years earlier during this time period. Meanwhile, in Las Vegas, Nevada, people are experiencing the most extreme and longest heat wave since the summer of 2013, according to local radio. On June 16, the temperature in this city nearly reached the record 47 degrees Celsius recorded in 1940. It's worrying as officials warn the current temperatures are rare, dangerous and deadly, fearing the heat coming too soon could lead to wildfires amid a chronic drought raging in the region. West America. According to KULR-TV, a wildfire near Yellowstone National Park in Montana broke out rapidly on the night of June 14 and by the morning of June 15 had burned more than 8 square kilometers of forest. Authorities have notified households in the area to prepare for evacuation if the forest fire continues. There are reports that these local governments have had to open cooling stations for the disadvantaged without air conditioning and urged influencers on social media to post warnings about effects of hot weather on livestock. The highest temperature ever officially recorded in the U.S. was more than 55 degrees Celsius in Death Valley between California and Nevada in 1913. Newsletter 4. Explosion at a chemical plant in the U.S. state of Illinois. About 1,000 people had to evacuate urgently. On the morning of June 14, local time, an explosion occurred at a chemical plant in Rockton, Illinois, USA. Details said the explosion occurred at a chemical plant belonging to Chemtool Incorporated, which produces engine oil, lubricant products and other liquids. The company is located near Rockton, Winnebago County, Illinois, about 152 kilometers northwest of Chicago, the third largest city in the United States. About 70 employees were safely evacuated from the plant while one firefighter suffered minor injuries, adding that the explosion does not pose a risk to quality, Rockton Fire Department Chief Kurt Wilson said. Air above the ground. However, the explosion caused many debris to explode, causing large fires and thick columns of black smoke, prompting authorities to urgently evacuate people and businesses in the southern area of the factory. Above. According to the authorities, the fire can only be completely extinguished in a few more days when the flammable liquids burn out. An estimated 1,000 people have been affected by the evacuation order, said Rockton Development and Planning Manager Tricia Diddock. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has taken air samples at the scene and conducted monitoring the situation. The state governor's office also issued an urgent notice to expand the evacuation area from a radius of 1.6 kilometers to 3.2 kilometers from the factory and recommend that people in the area wear masks to prevent soot. Newsletter 5. The U.S. state of California will ban the sale of gasoline passenger cars and trucks from 2035. Starting in 2035, California will ban the sale of gasoline-powered passenger cars and trucks as America's top auto market shifts to electric vehicles to reduce emissions that cause warming, California Governor Gavin said. Newsom just said so. It should be noted that Mr. Newsom earlier this month vowed to step up efforts to combat climate change amid the ongoing severe wildfire season. "We're marking a milestone," Newsom said at a press conference in Sacramento in front of electric cars made by automakers to help California reduce vehicle emissions. New way. Observers say the move is the most significant for the state of California to end the use of fossil fuel-burning internal combustion engines and conflicts with the president's pro-fossil fuel policies. President Donald Trump. According to Newsom, California, the country's most populous state, is committed to its solid goal of phasing out the sale of new gasoline-powered vehicles by 2035 and encouraging states to another perform the same action. California has a larger goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% from 1990 levels by 2050, but in recent years, emissions in the transportation industry have increased. It is known that California accounts for about 11% of all U.S. car sales, and many U.S. states choose to adopt clean vehicle regulations. Newsom describes the move as an economic opportunity that creates jobs and boosts U.S. automakers. The joint news also said the California Air Resources Board, CARB, would make Newsom's goal a legally binding requirement by making it mandatory that 100% of passenger vehicle sales and new trucks in the state are zero emissions by 2035. The council also plans to ban all zero emissions medium and heavy vehicle operations by 2045.